Statement 13 of chapter 2. It also happens that one begins with the training in discriminative wisdom. So this statement pertains to what is known as the three trainings. So this is some basic vocabulary that it's good for us to know, 3 vehicles, 3 vows, 3 turnings of the wheel, 3 types of wisdom, 3 poisons, 3 jewels, of course. 3 trainings is talking about the training in ethical conduct, shila, the training in meditative concentration, samadhi, and the training in discriminative wisdom or clear seeing, prajna. So shila, samadhi, and prajna. Meditative, maybe meditative equipoise, sama, becomes same. Meditative concentration is dhyana or jhana. Meditative equipoise. This mind becomes even and regular and stable. So these are the 3 trainings, shila, samadhi, and prajna. Sila, samadhi, prajna, or ethical conduct, this meditative equipoise, and here translated as discriminative wisdom, meaning to be able to see distinctly, to see clearly. Right? To see clearly, to see basically that everything lacks inherent existence, lacks self, so the view of emptiness. Then even more profound, even requiring even more power of clarity, is seeing the exact workings of cause and effect. So these are basically, when we say see clearly about what? See clearly that things lack inherent existence. Direct seeing of that is already accomplished at the 8th bodhisattva level. So what is left to do on 9 and 10? What is left to do on 9 and 10 is to further enhance and clear the obscurations so that the exact working of cause and effect can be seen, can be clearly perceived. That's on bodhisattva level 9 and 10, and then at the 11th level, according to the sutra tradition, that is Buddhahood. So these are the 3 trainings, and so here Kyopa says, it is also possible, to engage in these 3 trainings by beginning first with discriminative wisdom. And why does he say that? Because the more general view is, people claim that within these 3 trainings, that superior training of disciplined conduct, you have to begin with that. So that is kind of the general position. That in the 3 trainings, there is a gradual, progressive nature of the 3 trainings, so that you begin with disciplined conduct or ethical conduct, right? Disciplined conduct. From disciplined conduct, then you establish meditative equipoise. From meditative equipoise, then you develop discriminative wisdom. I think in general, Kyopa would say, yes, that's what you should do. Because as you have seen, Kyopa emphasizes how everything should be cultivated progressively, progressively, increasingly, increasing your capacity. And that would be, again, a logical place to start, right? Without taking the vows and cultivating disciplined conduct. So if our actions of especially physical actions and verbal actions are unruly, unrestrained, right? If they're unruly and unrestrained, any talk of like gaining some stability of mind is just talk. And so you have to begin by first curtailing, restraining, mindless chattering. One of the four, right? Non-virtues of speech. Mindless chatter. I call it distracted speech. From there, once we have better control of this distracted speech, then it's easier, for us to avoid the other three as well. Divisive speech, destructive speech, and deceptive speech. And then we can restrain our physical as well. And when physical and verbal is more restrained, more disciplined, then meditative equipoise becomes easier to cultivate, to gain. And as the mind becomes more and more even, stable, steady, then it becomes easier to cultivate clear seeing, discriminative wisdom. Generally, that is true. But here, interestingly, Khenpo says, it could also be the case that for some people, they begin first with the discriminative wisdom. And so what's going on here is, as much as Khenpo generally would emphasize kind of progressing along in a more common way, in a more clear way, he also wants us to understand that, at the end of the day, all these teachings, all these practices, and all these even levels, they are to be engaged in a comprehensive manner. Just as the three vows, right? We begin first with the first level of vows, which is the individual liberation vows, generally speaking. Then the bodhisattva vow. Then the secret mantra, samayas. So generally there is, right, this progression. But the way Khenpo would emphasize this, he says, actually all three of them, they're basically the same thing. If you understand, if you have the right understanding, you see that these three sets of vows, they are not so much do this, and then when you're good at this, do this. And then when you're good at this, do this. But rather, these three, they mutually reinforce each other. So much so that you will find that there's no way to really practice the vows of secret mantra if you are not already guarding your bodhisattva vows and your individual liberation vows. And so much so that you even see that by seemingly guarding just the individual liberation vows, you're guarding the individual liberation vows with the motivation of the Mahayana vows and with the skill of the secret mantra vows. And then when you're guarding your bodhisattva vows of benefiting all beings, you will come to an understanding that there's really no way to benefit beings if we don't know how to first prevent ourselves from getting into trouble. So the individual liberation vows, we see, that really is at the root of this. And also we will come to an understanding that there's really no guarding and fulfilling the bodhisattva vow if we don't understand the secret mantra skill. And so that all three sets of vows, they're not sequential, they are like the three legs of a tripod. So likewise, the three trainings, even though, yes, there is a natural progression from one perspective, here in this statement, Kyopa wants to emphasize again that actually these three, they are like the three legs of a tripod. Rather than the analogy of step 1, step 2, step 3, we can relate to these three trainings as the three legs of a tripod. So then when it comes to the three legs of the tripod, it doesn't matter. Don't be so fixated on, this leg first, and then this leg, and then this leg. He says you can also start with discriminative wisdom. So let's look at Khenpo Kunpal's commentary. Although one should gradually practice the three trainings, which are the topics of the three collections of teachings. So here Khenpo Kunpal joins the three trainings with the three baskets, the Tripitaka, so that the training in disciplined conduct is the Vinaya collection. The training in meditative equipoise is the basket of sutras. And the training in discriminative wisdom is the basket called Abhidharma. The three baskets, the three collections of the Buddha's teachings. And so one should gradually practice the three trainings, which are the topics of the three collections of teachings, of the three baskets. It also happens that one begins with the training in discriminative wisdom. Although one generally should gradually practice the three trainings, it also happens that one might begin with the training in discriminative wisdom first. This case is as follows. The training in discriminative wisdom is when the interdependent causes and conditions between guru and disciple have fully come together. And in this case, the guru is endowed with the vital points of pith instructions. So the guru has these pith instructions that he or she have not only learned them, knows them, but have experienced them. And due to this, the disciple comes to know the actual realization of the path, which arises in their mind stream. So here Khenpo Kunpal is emphasizing what kind of discriminative wisdom training? Basically what we call Mahamudra. So when the conditions come together so that a experienced, skilled guru meets with a student or students, disciples with merit, and the time is right, then in that meeting of minds, some clear seeing occurs. And that arises in the mind of the disciples, in the experience of the disciples. So meditating on this single-pointedly is the training in meditative concentration. So after gaining some insight into nature of reality, nature of mind, right? Then the student can just stabilize what was glimpsed, what was seen through discriminative wisdom. Then cultivating this single-mindedly is the training in meditative equipoise. When one thereby attains the wisdom eye, and then in doing that, you finally gain what is known as wisdom eye, clear seeing, and thus understands the profound vital points of cause and result, such that one does not need to depend on others in order to know what to do and what not to do. This is the training in disciplined conduct. One will cherish it like the apple of one's eye. So in this particular sequence, right, instead of starting with disciplined conduct, right, it could be also the case that, you know, a disciple with good merit meets with a guru with good experience and realization. And through that meeting, the disciple gets a chance to see, to gain some confidence. Oh, this is how things are. And having seen that, having realized that, temporarily at first, they settle their mind in that realization. And then they deepen that realization. And they continue to cultivate, to encourage that clarity that was glimpsed. And that becomes meditative equipoise training. And in training in meditative equipoise, this becomes more and more stable. As a result, you see more and more clearly. It says here, now you will automatically practice disciplined conduct. Because after all, Buddha gave those rules in the disciplined conduct based on seeing cause and effect clearly. As you yourself see cause and effect more clearly, you have less and less a need of even memorizing. Oh, I cannot do this, I can do that, I should do this, I should not do that. Very instinctively, you know. You can see, oh, that is a cause of suffering. I don't do. Oh, that is a cause of happiness, you know. I should cultivate. Huh? So we do that, you know. If we do it that way, now it's you begin with discriminative wisdom, then you proceed to meditative equipoise, then you proceed to disciplined conduct, going the other direction. Why it's possible to do that? Because they are not three successive steps going higher and higher. They are the three legs of a tripod. This case is, for example, like Jigten Sumgun, who first actualized the yoga of no more meditation. And so this is referring to, in Gampopa's way of teaching about Mahamudra, Mahamudra practice, Gampopa says that there are 4 stages. And the yoga of no more meditation is the last of the 4 yogas of Gampopa. The footnote tells us. The first 3 being the yogas of single pointedness, the yoga of freedom from elaboration, and the yoga of one taste. Then the 4th one is the yoga of no more meditation. And so here Khenpo Kunpal says, you know, actually Jigten Sumgun first actualized this yoga of no more meditation. Then finally took full ordination in the Buddhist teachings and greatly cherished the precious discipline. So when Kyoba Rinpoche, when Kyoba Jigten Sumgun met his teacher, his root teacher, Lord Pamodrupa, and when Pamodrupa enabled Jigten Sumgun to see the nature of his mind, to understand the nature of reality, and therefore to have reached the yoga of no more meditation. So he got that first. Then as that realization becomes deeper and deeper, because when it says he achieved the yoga of no more meditation, and don't think of it as just like one place, like, oh, that's it. It's like there are more and more profound states even within that state of being. So what we see is that in fact, when Pamodrupa was alive still, Pamodrupa kept urging Jigten Sumgön and said, you should become a monk. You should take the full vows. But Jigten Sumgön in his biography says he was very proud, he looked around in his teacher's community and there were many monks who have been monks for a long, long time. But he didn't think much about them. He thought, I already realized the nature of mind, Why do I need Why do I need to take these vows? I already know naturally what I do and what I don't do. And these so-called great monks around, even though they have taken the vows and everything, but they're still kind of full of their stuff, Jigten Sumgön's biography says, his biggest fault was he was very arrogant. We might say cocky. So Pamodrupa kept urging him, you should, and he said, no, it's okay. So here is in a way you can also see a good disciple, doesn't necessarily mean always yes, Lama, yes, Lama. That could just be going through the motions, yes, Lama, yes. Jigten Sumgön has his own mind too, and no, it's okay. His teacher said you should become a monk. No, it's okay. Never mind. It wasn't until his teacher passed away, and years after his teacher passed away, I think maybe at least 7 years, when he was deepening his practice, and the more he deepened his practice, the more he saw and understood in a direct way. Oh, actually, there is great benefit in taking those vows. Rather than, oh, I don't need them anymore. I naturally know what to do and what not to do. He understood more about the significance of this disciplined conduct. So then eventually he sought full ordination and became a monk himself. This is after he already has a lot of disciples also. Not a lot. Later he had even more. But at that point he was already recognized as an authority. In fact, very interestingly, when his teacher passed away, it is said that his teacher had 500 key disciples, and each of them were masters in their own right. And they were all monks. But instead of any of them officiating at his teacher's funeral, Kyopa Jigten Sumgön was the one that was the chief mourner. So the time he spent with his teacher was quite short, but enough to convince, enough to convince the others that he has realized a profound level. Not so much so that the teacher's funeral rites, because in that culture, who officiates? Basically, the eldest son. And so, in the case of monks, then the most the clearest kind of successor is the one that officiates. So, even though Jigten Sumgön wasn't a monk, the community recognized his level of attainment and how Pamodrupa really valued and respected him. And so he conducted that. And so he already had his own disciples as well, but it was later only that he took the vows when it became more and more clear for him. So here then Khenpo Kunpal continues, he says, or it is like the first 5 disciples of the Buddha, who also due to their realization of wisdom, took full ordination. After attaining arhatship, they wore the saffron-colored robes, shaved their hair, used the consecration water for ordained persons' food, used only what was given to them, and so forth, acting very carefully. So here in the story of the first 5 disciples of the Buddha, the first 5 ascetics, it was really after they attained arhatship that then they took ordination to become fully ordained monks. Instead of saying, oh, I'm already arhat, I don't need these things. Which is what people these days would say, oh yeah, I was a monk before, I knew, now I'm even beyond that now. Because I know the rules naturally now, so I don't need these things now, and I've gone beyond. This shows the other instead. They already achieved the fruit. Then they come back to do the basics, because the basics again is not as you and I think of the basics, as in Dharma for dummies, but they are the most profound. It is said in the summary of precious qualities, discriminative wisdom precedes the giving of gifts, and likewise discipline, patience, zeal, and concentration. So this is the 6 paramitas. Of the 6 paramitas, usually you begin with giving, then disciplined conduct, then patience, then zeal or joyful effort, then meditative concentration, and then discriminative wisdom. But this quote says, actually, in order to really practice those 5 things, giving, disciplined conduct, patience, joyful effort, and meditative concentration, in order to practice them as paramitas, as perfections, discriminative wisdom is necessary from the beginning. So generally, like even when we were studying Bodhisattva, we went through the natural progression, starting with giving or generosity, then disciplined conduct, then patience, joyful effort, meditative concentration, then finally the chapter on wisdom. As a footnote, Shantideva don't have specific chapters called giving and disciplined conduct. Those 2 topics are embedded in the first 3 chapters on the excellence of bodhicitta, the taking up of bodhicitta, taking the bodhicitta vow, and then introspection and carefulness. Those are basically about giving or cultivating generosity and cultivating disciplined conduct. As a footnote, you should know this. Then there is a chapter called patience. Then there's a chapter called joyful effort. Then there's a chapter called meditative concentration. Then there's a chapter called discriminative wisdom in the Bodhicayavattara. So here, this quote says, discriminative wisdom precedes the giving of gifts, and likewise discipline, patience, zeal, and concentration. If you don't have this discriminative wisdom informing your practice of these other 5, then these other 5s are just ordinary practice of giving, ordinary practice of disciplined conduct, ordinary practice of patience, ordinary practice of effort, and ordinary practice of meditative concentration. And therefore, they are not the practice of the paramitas, not the practice of the perfections. So in this way, one should understand how discriminative wisdom makes the 6 transcendent practices superior. And this is how. Only with the discriminative wisdom that then the paramitas become the paramitas. So this is statement 13. Statement 14. One needs to practice all the stages of the path in a single session. One needs to practice all the stages of the path in a single session. So here are stages of the path, lamrim, the gradual stages, the progressive stages. So again, like I said, generally Kyoba Rinpoche, appreciates, emphasize very much the progressive nature of our training. But even as he emphasizes that style of practice, he also wants us to know that, as in the last statement, it's not literally kind of going higher and higher. You should also understand that all of this, at any given point, they should all come together as one. They should all come together as one. They should all come together as one. Right? We need to be able to see their unified meaning. So here, this statement is said in response to those who say that all these stages you practice over long periods of time. Meaning maybe first year or so, or you practice first renunciation. Then second year you practice, more. And then third year you practice more, But Kyoba says, no. In one session you can practice, you should take all of them together. And so this is to emphasize so even though this is lamrim, right, stages of the path, he's emphasizing a more holistic way of practicing all these stages in one session. This is like the key point here. He's saying, don't misunderstand the stages of the path as saying, oh, you should just do purely shamatha for 6 months. These days, actually, that is like considered to be a disciplined way. And there are teachers, teaching that, First, you do 6 months of shamatha. Or even a year of shamatha. Then do something else after that. Then do something else after that. Then do something else after that. There's nothing wrong about that. What Kyoba is teaching here is a more holistic way. So he says, don't practice shamatha to the exclusion of bodhicitta. Don't practice shamatha to the exclusion of restraining body and speech. How can you just practice one thing and think, 6 months later I'll add another thing, and 6 months later I'll add another thing? He says this is not how it is. It's everything is always together as a comprehensive. I mean, we're not talking about literally like, maybe like thinking like juggling, 6 balls at the same time. It's not saying, Also, some people I think misunderstand, that they check the list, in one session. Do I have all of this? Oh, this one, 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 this one. That's I think a little obsessive. We don't need to say, oh, now I'm going to practice everything. So sometimes there's a list of 11 things that you need to have. Check, 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 check. They begin with like the 4 thoughts that turn the mind. Oh, check 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 4, inner preliminaries, the inner foundational practices. Oh, I do a little bit that, little bit that, little bit that, little bit that. Oh, then I do a little bit of this, little bit of this, little bit of this. Then they say, oh yes, now I have a complete session. I really don't think, Kyoba Rinpoche is talking about this. He's talking about approaching the stages of progressive training, not in such a rigid way of first I do this for a few months, then I do this for a few months, but see that all the practices, each of them are cultivating a particular mental quality, cultivating a particular Buddha quality, clearing a particular confusion. And you need to see the relationship, the interdependent nature of these things, and do it all as a comprehensive. Yeah? And so here Khenpo Kunpal's commentary. Among the gradual path, such as the glorious Lord Atisha's gradual path of the 3 types of practitioner, the noble master Nagarjuna's 5 stages, the noble king Kulika Pundarika's 6 yogas, the 6 yogas of Naropa. Here we take the example of the precious savior Jigten Sumgan's 5-fold Mahamudra. So this very famous, Kyoba Rinpoche's 5-fold Mahamudra. From the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, refuge, and bodhicitta up through dedication, one needs to practice all the stages of the path without contradiction in a single session. That is to say, in each and every session of the day and night, completely and without mixing up the order. One should not leisurely skip parts of the practice. Thus are Jigten Sungren's instructions. So in this case, I think Khenpo Kunpal's commentary wants to emphasize, don't skip anything. You have to have everything in there. I don't feel it's necessarily saying that. Although that point, is something to good to not skip things, like just for fun, or like, oh, today I don't feel like doing this, I'm going to skip. Of course, don't do that. But I think the bigger point in this statement is not necessarily about, check, 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 check. And otherwise, our practice can be very like going through the motions, Oh, all 11 things, First, I cannot remember what the 11 things. Okay, I'm going to type it up. And then every day, in a session, I say, okay, check that. Okay, check that. Oh, 2 minutes that. Oh, 2 minutes that. Oh, 3 minutes that. Oh, 5 minutes that. Oh, check, 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 check. Oh, yes, I've been a good boy. I've been a good girl. I've done exactly all the things that I need to do. We're not really talking about that. We are talking about developing this ability to see that every practice we do should be done in a comprehensive way that includes all the key elements. The 3 vows all have to be there. The 3 trainings all have to be there. Don't see it as, unconnected. In fact, don't see it as check, 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 check. Then you're just going through the motions. Like clocking in at work, and clock out. Oh, I clocked in, I clocked out, But you're not a good worker. Your heart is not there. You don't understand. Don't do that. So this is statement 14. And so then tomorrow we will cover statement 15 to 15. And then next week, we are not meeting. Next week, I'm going to be out of town traveling. So we won't meet for this morning practice from 8 to 9.